a nightmare on wheels. The old taxi, a relic from a bygone era, chugged along the desolate road. The wind howled, carrying with it the mournful cries of unseen creatures. Outside, the landscape was a barren expanse of rock and sand, stretching out as far as the eye could see. A young man named Omar sat behind the wheel, his eyes fixed on the empty road ahead. He had been driving for hours, the monotony of the journey broken only by the occasional flicker of a distant light. Omar was a curious soul, drawn to the unknown. He had left the bustling city behind, seeking adventure and solitude. As darkness fell, the road became even more eerie. The wind seemed to intensify, and the distant lights flickered and disappeared. Omar felt a sense of unease creeping into his bones. It was as if something was watching him, lurking in the shadows. He glanced in the rearview mirror, but there was nothing there, just the empty road and the inky blackness of the night. As Omar continued his journey, he came across a small, deserted town. The buildings were dilapidated and crumbling, and there was not a single sign of life. A chill ran down his spine as he drove through the deserted streets. He stopped at a gas station, hoping to refill the tank. As he pumped the gas, he heard a faint noise coming from behind the station. He turned around and saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was a woman, dressed in a long, flowing gown. The woman approached Omar slowly, her eyes fixed on him. She spoke in a voice that was both haunting and melodic. "You are not welcome here," she said. Omar tried to speak, but his voice was caught in his throat. He turned to leave, but the woman grabbed his arm. "Stay," she said. "You will be safe here." Omar felt a wave of fear wash over him. He tried to pull his arm away, but the woman's grip was iron-like. Suddenly, a bright light flashed in the sky. The woman let go of Omar, and he turned to see a strange, glowing orb hovering above the town. The orb seemed to be drawing energy from the town, and the buildings began to crumble around them. Omar ran to his taxi and jumped in, slamming the door behind him. He turned the key in the ignition, but the engine wouldn't start. Panic began to set in as the orb grew closer. Just as the orb was about to touch the taxi, a blinding light flashed. The orb disappeared, and Omar found himself standing in a forest. The deserted town was gone, replaced by a lush, green landscape. Omar was safe, but he knew that his journey was far from over. The mysterious woman and the glowing orb had left him with more questions than answers, and he was determined to find out the truth. As Omar wandered through the forest, he stumbled upon a small cabin. Smoke curled from the chimney, and a warm glow emanated from the windows. He knocked on the door, and a voice called out, "Come in." He stepped inside and found himself in a cozy living room. A man sat by the fireplace, his face obscured by the shadows. "Who are you?" Omar asked. The man stood up and revealed himself. He was an old man with piercing blue eyes and a long white beard. "My name is Elias," he said. "I have been waiting for you." Omar was confused. He had never met Elias before. "How do you know me?" he asked. Elias smiled. "I know many things, young man. I know that you are searching for answers." Omar nodded. He told Elias about the deserted town, the mysterious woman, and the glowing orb. Elias listened intently, his eyes never leaving Omar's face. When Omar had finished, Elias nodded. "You have stumbled upon something very dangerous," he said. "The orb is a powerful artifact that can manipulate reality. The woman you saw was a guardian of the orb, tasked with protecting it from those who would misuse it." "But why was the orb causing the town to crumble?" Omar asked. "The orb was being corrupted by negative energy," Elias explained. "The town was a source of that energy, and the orb was feeding on it. If the orb had not been stopped, it could have spread its corruption to the entire world. Omar was horrified. He had never realized the danger he had been in. "What can I do to help?" he asked. Elias smiled. "You have already done more than you know. By stopping the orb, you have saved countless lives. But there is still more to be done." Elias handed Omar a small, leather-bound book. "This book contains the knowledge you need to understand the true nature of the orb," he said. Omar took the book and thanked Elias. As he turned to leave, Elias stopped him. "Remember," he said, "the road ahead will be long and dangerous, but with knowledge and courage, you can overcome any obstacle." Omar nodded and left the cabin. He knew that his journey was far from over, but he was determined to see it through. With the book in hand, Omar set out to explore the ancient ruins that Elias had mentioned. The ruins were located deep in the heart of the forest, hidden from view by towering trees and dense undergrowth. As Omar made his way through the forest, he felt a growing sense of unease. The air was thick with an unnatural silence, and the trees seemed to watch him with cold, unblinking eyes. Finally, he reached the ruins. They were a sprawling complex of stone structures, covered in moss and vines. A faint glow emanated from the center of the ruins, drawing Omar closer. As he approached the glowing center, he heard a faint whisper in his ear. It was the voice of the mysterious woman from the deserted town. "Stay away," she warned. Omar ignored her and continued walking. The glow grew brighter, and he could see a strange, crystalline object suspended in the center of the ruins. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. The ruins trembled, and cracks appeared in the stone. Omar realized that the woman's warning had been true. The ruins were unstable, and he was in danger. He turned to run, but it was too late. A massive stone slab fell from the ceiling, pinning him to the ground. The pain was excruciating, but Omar refused to give up. He struggled against the weight of the slab, his mind racing. He remembered the book that Elias had given him. Perhaps it could help him escape. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the book. He flipped through the pages, searching for a clue. Finally, he found it. In the back of the book was a map, showing the location of a hidden chamber within the ruins. The chamber was said to contain a powerful artifact that could manipulate time and space. Omar knew that he had to find the chamber. It was his only hope of escape. With a surge of strength, he managed to shift the slab slightly. He wriggled free and crawled towards the map. Following the map, Omar found a hidden passageway. He crawled through the passageway, the darkness closing in around him. At the end of the passageway, he found the hidden chamber. Inside, a blinding light illuminated a strange, crystalline object. It was the same object that he had seen in the center of the ruins. Omar knew that this was his chance to escape. He reached out and touched the object. A wave of energy washed over him, and he felt himself being pulled into a swirling vortex of light. When he emerged, he found himself standing on a cliff overlooking a vast ocean. The ruins were gone, replaced by a breathtaking landscape. Omar was free, but he knew that his journey was far from over. The mysterious woman and the glowing orb were still out there, and he was determined to find them. Omar stood on the cliff, gazing out at the vast ocean. A sense of peace washed over him, but he knew that his journey was far from over. The mysterious woman and the glowing orb were still out there, and he was determined to find them. He turned and began to walk along the cliff, the wind whipping through his hair. As he walked, he thought about the events of the past few days. He had faced countless dangers, but he had also learned a great deal about himself and the world around him. As the sun began to set, Omar reached the end of the cliff. He looked down and saw a small, secluded cove. A faint light was emanating from the cove, and he could hear a soft, rhythmic sound. Intrigued, Omar descended to the cove. As he got closer, he realized that the light was coming from a small boat. The boat was rocking gently on the waves, and a figure was standing at the helm. It was the mysterious woman from the deserted town. "You have come," she said, her voice filled with both sadness and resignation. Omar approached the boat. "Why did you try to stop me?" he asked. The woman sighed. "I was protecting the orb," she replied. "It is a powerful artifact, and it can be used for both good and evil. I feared that you would fall under its influence." "But I didn't," Omar said. "I used the orb to save my life." The woman nodded. "Perhaps you are different from others," she said, "but the orb is still dangerous." As they spoke, a strange, pulsating glow began to emanate from the woman. She looked at Omar with a sad smile. "It is time," she said. "The orb is calling to me." With that, the woman stepped off the boat and into the water. The water around her began to bubble and churn, and a blinding light erupted from the surface. When the light faded, the woman was gone. In her place, the glowing orb floated on the surface of the water. Omar knew what he had to do. He reached out and grabbed the orb. A wave of energy washed over him, and he felt a connection to the artifact. With a deep breath, Omar closed his eyes and focused his mind. He channeled the energy of the orb, shaping it into a powerful beam of light. He pointed the beam at the sky, and a blinding light filled the cove. The orb began to glow brighter and brighter, until it was a ball of pure energy. Then, with a final burst of light, the orb disappeared. Omar stood on the shore, watching the place where the orb had been. A sense of peace washed over him. He had defeated the darkness, and the world was a safer place. As he turned to leave, he heard a faint voice calling his name. He looked back and saw the mysterious woman standing on the cliff. "Thank you," she said. "You have done a great service to the world." Omar smiled. "It was my duty," he replied. With that, the woman turned and disappeared into the mist. Omar watched her go, a sense of gratitude and satisfaction filling his heart. His journey was over, but he knew that his life would never be the same. Omar stood on the cliff, watching the mist slowly dissipate. A sense of peace washed over him as he realized that his journey was truly over. He had faced countless dangers, overcome countless obstacles, and emerged victorious. As he turned to leave, he felt a strange sensation. It was as if something was calling to him, drawing him towards the ocean. Curiosity piqued, he followed the feeling. The path led him to a secluded cove, where a small wooden boat was bobbing gently on the waves. A sense of familiarity washed over him. It was the same cove where he had confronted the mysterious woman. A smile crept onto Omar's face. He knew what he had to do. He climbed into the boat and began to row, the rhythmic motion soothing his soul. As he rowed, he thought about the journey he had taken. He had faced darkness, but he had also found light. He had experienced fear, but he had also discovered courage. He had lost friends, but he had also gained new ones. The sun was beginning to set as Omar reached the open ocean. He stood at the helm, the wind whipping through his hair. He looked out at the vast expanse of water, feeling a sense of freedom and exhilaration. He had come a long way since he had first set out on his journey. He had faced the unknown, conquered his fears, and found himself. And now, as he sailed into the sunset, he knew that his life would never be the same.